All right, got you.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good
Yes.
evening. Happy New Year. And welcome to the 2022 edition of Real Talk Family Life, the place where we build shatterproof families one brick at a time. And it's very fitting at the beginning of the year to begin with this topic that we have for you tonight. Parent, it's a parenting topic, so parent and church. The two major families in our lives, right? So you have parent and church impacting the life of the child. How do we as parents, along with the church, impact the lives of our children? So before we get started, I would like you please to reach out to your contacts, text, Instagram, Facebook, however you communicate with your friends and family members and contacts. Reach out to them, let them know that we are about to start an amazing segment of our Real Talk Family Life, the 2022 edition. Give them the Zoom number, give them whatever you need, send them to YouTube, but just invite them to come along and have this awesome discussion with us here tonight. I want you to know that we want you and we expect you and we hope that you will be interactive with us. Ways in which you can be interactive are the following. You could definitely pose a question in the chat or comment. You can raise your hand to be acknowledged and we will invite you to unmute so you can have a conversation with us. You can also use the emojis that are at the bottom of your screen, whether it's a hand clap or a thumbs up. Hey, maybe even laughing till you're about to crack up, roll on the ground laughing, whatever emoji fits your experience tonight, use it. And that's how we know that you're here with us, you're interacting with us, you're communicating with us. So let's get started. We have an amazing panel with us tonight, a panel that represents different stages of growth and development in the lives of our children. So I want to introduce our panelists. I'm going to have each of them take a few seconds to introduce themselves, tell you who they are, where they're from, a little bit, how many kids they have or so forth, and whatever they feel comfortable sharing. And I will begin with Mrs. Maria Mccain, a name and face that is not foreign to you. So Maria, would you please introduce yourselves to our audience?
Thank you, Dr. Neff. Well, hello, everyone. I am Maria Mills McCain. I am married to Georgie McCain. We have 3 wonderfully different children who are now young adults. Zachary 23, Chelsea 27, and Rennie 28. Rennie, you may have met on the Youth Real Talk programs before. I attend Faith Tabernacle, the church in Trinidad, where my husband and I both serve as deacons. We're in leadership position there, and we serve under the leadership of Pastor Anthony Henry. I am an event decorator by profession. You could check out my page on Facebook. Just putting in a little plug there under the handle Triple M Creations. It's, God has been good to me, and I truly find it a privilege to serve him in whatever capacity that I can. So I'm really honored to be part of this discussion for the mere fact that God has entrusted me with not 1, but 2, but 3 children. God bless you.
Thank you, Maria. All right, let's go to Katrina Lucas. Miss Katrina Lucas, she's one of the duo that's in that one window there. So we'll ladies first, so we'll have her introduce herself, and then we'll have Brother Kerry introduce himself after.
Okay. Well, I am Katrina Lucas, and I'm married to this young man next to me, Kerry. We've been married for 14 years, and we have 3 children. Keontae 12, Kiona 10, and Kimura, who is just turned 5. I'm a teacher by profession, and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I believe in, always trying to say yes when it is something for the Lord. So try to be as positive and try to, live that Christian life as a role model for those around me. And I also believe in being a practical Christian. So when we speak about our Christianity, I want to see myself actively participating in that Christian walk. So that is what I would say.
Yes. And good evening. Yes, you just heard from my lovely wife. And yeah, so I'm her husband. My name is Katrina Lucas. And as she said, we've been married for 14 years. You know how marriage life goes. Yes, and we we've been in a beautiful relationship that goes up and down, as they do. And we have three beautiful children, as she mentioned, one boy and two girls. I work as a medical laboratory technologist in our main hospital, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Barbados. Some people know it in some countries as a biomedical scientist. Yes, and yes, I've always been a Christian. I attend the East Point Seventh-day Adventist Church, and my thing is, for me, I always think I'm learning. To be honest, true. Uh, I don't ever think I know it all. When you're young, you think you knew everything, but as you get older, you recognize how little you knew. And for me, I'm always trying to learn more, and I try to encapsulate myself with those that are wise and so forth, and also like to share. So that's really me. Love animals as well. So I always like to be out in nature and you get to know, nature is one of my best teaching tools as well. So that is really Carrie there in a nutshell. Yes, always eager to learn and like to be around wise people and ask God for wisdom. Yes.
Thank you, Carrie and Katrina Lucas. So excited that you are here. You represent the parents who are parenting young children. And next we have Pastor Anthony Henry. He's not here to really represent his parents, his children, but to represent his grandchildren by way of his children. Pastor Henry, tell us a little bit about your family.
Thank you, Dr. Neff. I have abandoned my children a long time ago. They both walk up the aisle many, many years ago, many, many years ago. So I cherish my grandchildren. There are 5 of them. They range, I think, from 19 years to 3 years. And so they're the ones who keep me young. So it's a pleasure being here with you this evening. As you know, we are concerned about family lives. And so whatever little contribution we can make here to make your life a little better, it's a joy for us.
And so you know that I'm not speaking in a vacuum. I am also a parent and a grandparent. I am a parent of 3 daughters plus 1 bonus daughter. So I live in a blended family. I have three grandchildren, a 15-year-old grandson, a 10-year-old granddaughter, and a 4-year-old grandson who thinks I'm the best thing that ever happened to life, even better than his parents. So I understand where you're coming from, Pastor Henry. The grandchildren are where it's at. Absolutely. So welcome again, and reach out to your friends and family members. Invite them to another edition of Real Talk Family Life, the 2022 edition of Building Shadowproof Families, One Brick at a Time. Our topic this evening is parenting, parent and church, how they impact the lives of the child. So we are going to begin with our first segment that deals with the negative and positive impacts of our parents and how they have impacted the parents that we are today. All of us like to think that we are the best parents there ever was, and many parents do. And oftentimes we can see, especially when we deal with parents, I know many teachers can attest to this. Parents come into the school to deal with an issue with their child, and the behavior of the child, the behavior of the parent really helps us understand why the child is behaving the way he or she is in the school. And at the same time, the parent believes that their parenting style is the best. So, Sister Katrina, to what extent have your parents impacted your life to be the type of parent that you are today? And I want to hear not just the positive things, right? Because we can also learn from what we call the negative things, so kind of hit on both of those for us. To what extent have your parents impacted your life as a parent to your children today?
Okay. I would say, starting with the positive, is that they kind of instill that drive to succeed and the will to constantly be learning and not just be satisfied with, achieving one thing in terms of learning and being stuck in that, just continuous learning was something that they're kind of instilling me inadvertently, because my parents are not professionals per se, but they were very forceful with education because they felt that they did not have the education that they would have, I guess, appreciated or would have liked. And they wanted their children to have a better life because they saw, old time people, they see education as the way to succeed and survive in this world. And I agree, because without education, we are basically wandering in the darkness. So that was one of the things that I found most impactful for me. Also, discipline. Contrary to what Kerry is experiencing now with our children, my mother was very, very quick with her hand. Like you barely flounce up your face or you stoops or do any of those facial expressions that were not acceptable, and a lash was flinging. Unfortunately, with the grandchildren now, that's a different story altogether. So that is for me what some of the major ways in which my mom particularly, because I live with my mom, impacted my life negatively. I would think it was very difficult coming up with a single mother. And being married now, you come up seeing a strong woman, fighting to, my father supported us financially and he was there. But when you are not feeling well at night, it was mommy that you cried on her shoulder. When you had a little breakups with your boyfriend, it's mommy that was there at night. When you have to be up late, it was mommy that was really there because she's who you live with.
Right.
And after marrying Kerry, it was, kind of difficult to like soften that shell to understand that you are in a relationship with someone, you have a partner, and that you don't have to take it on your own. So I think that that I would see that as a negative, because it kind of had you with this skewed view of relationships. And also it was a very difficult transition period when we first got married. So understanding how to transition in that, environment, even with parenting, like discipline and stuff like that, when we first had our son, like understanding that you have a partner to lean on and support you in that discipline and in rearing of the child, that was something that you had to adjust to because you came up in a single parent home.
Thank you. Maria or Carrie, you want to add anything to that, or Pastor Henry?
Similarly, well, in my family, my parents were married, and the whole marriage, like one of the positive things is you saw how it was to be committed to one individual, one spouse. That's one of the positives. Then they were extremely, spiritual, and they were very, very active in the church and forming a sister church. So it was church, church, church. Oh my God, church so often, that's all I knew. And then you have visitors going to church with us and coming home with us and being involved. So, a lot of people, I don't know, most, as you get older now, but that was all that I knew at a certain age. So that is one positive that I got from them, as well as that drive to, they were both civil servants. So they're very patriotic, and that was some of the positives. Discipline for sure, and teaching of the Ten Commandments and all that was very important. Nonetheless, I don't know if we call it a negative, but my father was very, very. It comes to lashes and flogging, he was very. He didn't make any sport, as you were saying, Barbados. So don't slip up. It is lashes. It's a hot one, so get a good flogging, as they would say. So yeah, that was one of the things that I would say somewhat negative to at the slightest thing. You get that. So you come along in a more legalistic for a very long time mindset. Uh, Additionally, I would say from my mom's side, one of the things that I would say would be a negative is that she would like to make every decision for you as a child, and even as you grow into teenage, so everything she would want to make that decision for you, whatever it is. And I found that even when I went to to study, and I'm just using this as an example, that all of a sudden now it was faced with the fact that you're in a strange country, you have to make a lot of decisions for yourself, and it was very unnerving and unsettling for a while, until I got over that hurdle. And I would say then that it helped then in my true independence. So I would say that would be one of the harmful things of parenting, one of the negatives where you constantly um, try to make all the decisions for the child. But apart from that, I love my parents, and I think they too would have had their issues back in the old days that they would have experienced. So I can only say that what they learned was somewhat what they would have tried to improve on from their time. So yes, that is how I would sum it up. Mhm.
Hey, Maria.
So for me, I grew up in a two-parent family home. There was always mommy and daddy around. My dad loved gardening, so he would go and plant stuff for us to eat, to cook, to sell. And my mom was there rearing us at home. She ensured that we learned, in every possible way, whether it's from the Sunday school, at church, even went to evening Sunday school as well, morning and evening, as much as we can take in as children. She made sure that we had that avenue to go towards. And for both parents, they've been a part of our lives in a very positive way, by way of example. I, for one, have no recollection of getting licks from my parents. I did from my siblings, however, who thought they were my parents. But that's another story. But yes, they positively impacted us by, providing the information and the knowledge that we would have needed. And bear in mind, my mom didn't have formal education, but she was so much a part of our education. One could never tell that she never went to secondary school level. And even up to today, she's one of the most computer savvy person that you could think of. She's on Facebook and everything. Good night, mom. She's on right now. She's on Zoom as well. So yeah, she's been a part of my life, impacting the way I raise my children as well. Because my dad died 30 years ago. And so it's been mom carrying us since then. And she's always have some word of wisdom, some little nugget to drop on you. So I could only talk about the positives. The negatives came from my siblings. I'll leave it right there.
That is a low dig, low blow, right? Because I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest sister, second mom, second parent. So yes, I did do a lot of disciplining. Okay, but look how well you turned out, right? That's what a parent would normally say, right? All right, let's move on to the fathers. And Brother Kerry, you kind of touched on it already when you talk about your father made all the decisions. And while at the time it was acceptable, it was fine when you became a young man and on your own and having to make those decisions for yourselves, you realize that you weren't as prepared as you would have liked to be. But in addition to that, Paul admonished the fathers to nurture their children, which means that fathers have a significant role in the growth and development and nurturing of their children. Well, how is that relevant? How is Paul's admonition relevant to parenting today when the mother is seen as, or you're not just seen as, but designated by law as the more appropriate person to rear a child? When did that change? And how do you feel that Paul's admonition to fathers, especially to you as a father, is relevant today?
Well, Paul had admonished them that, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. And, I always see that what Paul was trying to get towards, because remember that society back then was very paternal, and the man was considered more dominant, and female weaker and less a vessel. But at the same time, I guess Paul recognized the importance of fathers too in nurturing their children and bringing them up, in the fear of God, because ultimately God is our heavenly Father, and the picture that Paul would want us to, when we recognize our heavenly Father, to be associated with that, with your earthly father, because when you hear about Father or Father in heaven, if you have a very bad or, for want of a better word, derogatory or something, about your father, when you think about God as your father, then it's not very appealing. So I believe that was what Paul was trying to recognize, how the intimacy that you should have as well in rearing your children and not just leaving it to the mothers. Over time, we've seen how society has broken down, and then there's so much single mothers and so forth, and how it's impacted. And I think he looked through time, in a sense, prophetically, and recognized that the male has a role to play in making sure that they are, well trained and balanced and find love and give love, in the service of God.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Henry, you have anything to add to that? You're muted. You're still muted, Pastor Henry.
Sorry about that. I got caught between two screens. I'm hearing Brother Kerry. I thought you were still on. Yeah, the father has a big job, and it's sad that we are in a society where it's thought that by many that the woman's responsibility is to rear the child. The father is supposed to nurture the child, is supposed to impact that child with education. And when I say education, I mean not just about the fishing and the getting the bread, getting the meal, but the values, the principles, how you live in a community, how you behave yourself with others. That's the father's responsibility. And our society is what it is today because of the absent fathers from the home, especially the young men. They go to crime. It's known fact that that the homes that suffer more are the single parent homes because of the absence of the father to provide that steadiness and that discipline that is necessary for the child, to literally nurture, just as how you would care for a plant, and you would prune it, and you would manure it, and you would feed it. It's the father's job to provide those values and those principles for the child, and enabling the child to grow up to what it's supposed to be.
And I will add that although we have, a lot of single family homes that are led by women, the role of the father has not changed, and the impact of the father has not been diminished. I know that many mothers do their best to try to fill in the gap for the missing father, and they do tremendous work and do a great job of trying to do that. But here's the thing, a mother, as awesome as she is, cannot teach a son to be a man. That role that comes from the father, and the impact is still true for girls as well. Girls, there are certain things that girls learn from their dad and have to learn from their father, that even though the mother does her best to try to make things, level for the children and to fill in that gap, what the father brings to that child, male or female, cannot be replaced, even with the best mothers out there. So God has given us each a role to play, and there are things that only us can do because we are the ones who were designated by him to fulfill that role. I see your hand, Katrina, but let me quickly point to a comment in the chat. Joanne said that older siblings helped with caregiving and really child rearing sometimes during that era. So I know many families can attest to the fact that the older siblings did have a role in raising and caring for the children as well. Katrina, is that your hand raised, or is it Carrie's?
Yes, that was my hand there. I just want to add a little more to that, the role of the fathers, because as you would have mentioned, I don't want to belabor your point, but the confidence in oneself is seen to come about when there's a strong bond with the father and the family. Really and truly, your personal confidence and your identity comes off of your father, and when you recognize that you're really loved and you have that sense of being secure, it does something for you as an individual and your identity, especially in young males, and I think the problem we have with a lot of males in society is that they lack that confidence in themselves, and that comes around from a very good relationship with your father. Additionally, with the females, the father is supposed to give them that affirmation, that they are indeed special, and a lot of ladies, and research has shown that a lot of early pregnancies have come about because of that. And when you really delve into it deeper, you recognize because they were not affirmed, in their femininity as a young lady, and knowing that they're beautiful, that from their father, then they look for it elsewhere, and so that is how important the role of the father is within the family, and it even goes on further, and I don't want to go too far, but even when you are married, the same confidence again comes out again, because you want to know that you're doing a good job rearing your family, and then again, you like to hear that from your wife, well, you're doing an excellent job. So you see where that confidence thing comes in again. And then similarly with the female, it goes back again. She wants to hear from her husband, I'm loved, despite, you had a little fallout, a little disagreement, you still want to know that you are affirmed with that love. So all this starts from very young, very young. When you even see in nature when the father is playing around with the animals, the cubs or whatever. So all that is part of the growth process, to strengthen you and prepare you to be a wonderful adult.
That's an
would like to
excellent point, Brother Kerry. In my work with parents, I encourage fathers to be the first person to give their daughter a pearl or a piece of gold or something of value. Because if you set that bar and you establish how much valuable they are to you, they're not going to seek for something from someone else that is way below what their value is. So someone wouldn't fool them with a trinket, because guess what? My dad bought me a gold necklace or gave me a pearl or gave me something because he feels that I'm valuable. So whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be something that expensive, but I think if you, as a dad, if you show your daughter their value and you teach them how valuable they are, they're not going to seek for trinkets from someone else because they're searching for that affirmation that you just mentioned, Brother Kerry. All right, we're going to move on because I'm looking at the clock. And the next session, I've looked in the chat, there's nothing there. So I want to remind you, if you have questions, place it in the chat or raise your hand. This question is for Sister Maria, and it has to do with the mother's role in child development. And I want to reference 1 Timothy 5:9-10 that speaks about no widow may be put on the list of widows unless she's over 60, has been faithful to her husband, and is well known for her good deeds, such as bringing up the children. Sister Maria, the mother's role in child's development. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I'm not over 60, but I would like to think that I am, doing a good job in raising my children and being faithful to my husband. You can ask him that question. But I think it's important the role that the mother plays. I mean, many a times as mothers, we are the ones that are home with the children. Let's face it, most times the father is the one who's out being the breadwinner. And for me, when we were having children, we made a decision that I would stay and take care of the children and nurture them, see them through school and, bring them up in life. And so it was important to become involved in everything they were involved in. So I found myself in the role of being not only just in Sunday school, in every PTA, in every homework center, lessons, you name it. Everything I became involved because I thought it was important. If I wanted to impact them, I needed to learn everything I could learn to do that job. And so getting the right information for me, I had to learn their language. Yeah, because young people have a language of their own. So in order for me to impact them, I had to learn what their language were as young people. I had to recognize their strengths and their weaknesses. I had to use the word of God at times, not only to discipline, but to remind them of the values and the things that God expects of them, as young people.
Right.
So I think mothers have such a great responsibility, to impact at that developmental stage of their children, to be there for them, to give them that guidance. And it's something we would have learned not only from our parents, but it had to be something that we too need to determine within our own selves to give them what we would like to see coming out of them, to model just what we want to see them to become. We first had to model it. So for me, my children had to see that I was involved in church. They had to see that how much I love God. They had to see how much I want to be kind to others. Not just telling them, but modeling it to them. So mothers have such a great responsibility. Sometimes it may seem greater than fathers. I know it's not true, but it may appear that way because the amount of time that we have to take in getting them to that point. But I know the job is an equal job because they look up to both parents. But yes, for mothers, it's a lot.
I'm not going to bore you with research, but research does show that a mother's level of education And that is not necessarily formal, but level of education impacts a child's education more so than the father's. And, it's amazing how our parents who were not as educated as we are today, somehow intuitively they knew, my mom knew that it was important for her children academically, that she believed in them and that she pushed them and promoted them and encouraged them and made education important to them by showing them it's important to her. And the research bears it out. The mother's role in training and educating their children is so amazingly impactful that we need to really encourage our parents, our mothers especially, to communicate to their children the importance of an education, the value of learning, and to continue learning herself. Maria, you talked about it was important for you to learn what they were learning, right? Learn what they're learning, learn their language, learn, what's happening in their lives so you can be impactful. I'm looking in the chat. Pastor Griffith says, I have two young men, 23 and 32, listening to you guys. I think I could do well to hear from them concerning how I have impacted them. Pastor Griffith, you will hear from them. Hold on. Okay. Brother Carey, is that your hand that's raised?
No, this time
No,
it's
this is
Katrina.
me.
Pastor Griffith wants to know from Brother Carey and from Pastor Henry how
Oh.
your mother's role, what the impact of the mother's role in your life.
Okay.
Well,
Pastor
So
Henry
you
go
have
first.
3 seconds.
Okay, I wanted to just say, to give him time to gather his thoughts. I was just thinking that, from adding on to what Maria said, when you're raising your children as a mother, from a mother's perspective, you have boys and you have girls. And I would like to think that I am my son's first love. He behaves that way, And I think that mommy in the home sets the tone of the home as well. And being your son and your daughter's cheerleader. You can't only be the disciplinarian, you have to also be their cheerleader. And I guess our children are still that young, tender age where you still have to do a lot of work at building their character and trying to, encourage them to be confident. And we're still at that growing stage. And I think that as a mom of younger children, that is something that is very important and very mindful of how you treat them, how you interact with them, how the example that you set for them, as they see you interact with their father as well, because as a mother, the way how you interact with your husband also shows your daughter how to interact with her future husband, and also shows your son how to treat their wives in the future. So being in that mothering role, it expands to so many other things, and we just have to try to be in our children's corner. And despite you are raising them to be free to speak to you as well. That is one of the things that I think as a mom is very important, that your children must be able to speak to you about their challenges, their rewards, their blessings, everything. They should be feeling free to share that with you. And you have to create that environment that fosters that. Carrie.
Okay, so I just reread Pastor Griffith's comment, and he was basically saying that there are 2 young men in the audience, 23 and 32, who are listening to us, and he would like to hear from them. That's who he would like to hear from. So young men in the audience, whoever you are, we would love to hear from you as well. So please raise your hand or place a comment, because we would definitely love to hear from the young men on how their parents and their mothers in particular have impacted their lives. So while I'm waiting to hear from them, I'm going to move on to the next segment, because I'm looking at the clock. And this is a segment for Pastor Henry, which speaks to the church's role in the child's development. Pastor Henry, what is the role of the church and its relationship with parents in shaping a child's life?
Mute. Let me say that the church is complementary to the parents. And Pastor Samuel and Pastor Griffith, they're in the audience. And so with due respect, the church isn't there to rear children. Neither grandparents, because we are growing up in a society today where parents are dropping their children with their parents and go off. So very early in life, I told my children when they were about 12, 13 years of age, that when they get married, they must bring their children always to see their grandparents, never send them. I'm not there to rear anybody's children. And as a pastor, I think that we put too much responsibility on the church to rear children, to bring up children. As a matter of fact, when it was done in the past, it failed. And I'm thinking of the life of Samuel. When we are doing the dedication of babies, we often refer to Hannah, how she brought the child to the house of God and commit him to the priest. That's Eli, 1 Samuel chapter 1, I think it verse 22. But that failed because she carried her son, and Samuel grew up in the temple all his life. And we learn that at the end of the day, Eli's children, because Eli was a permissive parent, his children rebelled against God. His children took bribes and what have you and so on. Now, Samuel seemed to have remained a good young man growing up serving the Lord. But when it came to his turn to parent, he modeled what he had seen in the life of Eli. And so his children also became rebellious because he modeled the permissive lifestyle, allowing the children to do what they want. So this thing about we take it so far that we have to take the child, and oftentimes parents think, I'm going to take the child to dedication. No pastor should be dedicating babies, because babies cannot be dedicated. They can't understand that at that time. The parents are the ones who need to dedicate themselves in that service to rear the child. And if you don't believe me, those parents who dedicate babies and do nothing to bring them back to church and to serve the Lord is probably the reason why in some religions now, when they're dead, they're paying the minister to say a good prayer for them to get them out of hell. And I don't know how much and how plausible is the dedication of the baby, the prayer for the baby is as good, or whether it is as good as the one to get the child out of hell. You see what I'm saying? So that I want to say that the church's role is to help the parents to understand principles, to understand what it means to bring the child up in the fear of God. And if we can help the parents to do that, we let the parents do what is supposed to be done. It is ridiculous that a parent brings the child to church, is in church with the child, The child is running up and down all over the church, and somebody else's parent has to go and tell the child, please be quiet. That is ridiculous. That is not the role of the church. And I have seen it fail. I've seen it fail because oftentimes the people who given responsibility in the church at times to bring up children or to help the parents with children, many a times they're the wrong people. Twice I've heard it on 2 occasions. One in Trinidad, I experienced it with a young man. Mother taking him to church, and his stepfather taking him to a different lifestyle, and the stepfather is a deacon in the church. Turns out to be a transvestite. All right, it's painful. It's painful, and so I, as a father, as a parent, I made sure that I did what I thought was necessary for my children. And so my 2 children are serving the Lord. 3 of my 5 grandchildren have already accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior and followed him in water baptism. And I have all the confidence that the other 2 will. The other 2 grandchildren, that is. I can go home to the Lord in peace, knowing that I have done what I was supposed to do as a father. And it's not luck or chance. It is an effort you have to make to sit with those children. Instead of sitting down and watching television, as a parent, you have to sit down there as a father and read for them and listen to them and answer their questions and help them to understand what it's all about, to teach them about things that you know that they're going to hear in school. You have to sit there with a parent. Right? I mean, as an adult, I mean, my grandchildren now, if they come and talk to me, I expect that, you know, I talk with them at times, but subjects for I was still tabooed when I had my children. So that the word sex, I dare not talk it in front of my children because I still had that foolish upbringing. You know, that's how my parents brought me up. I remember one of the trashing I got off for in my life. I went under the bed one evening and I saw this box and I began to spell out the word on it, M-O-D-E-S-S. And when I show my brother the word and tell him there, you know, look what I find, I got a real cut skin and I didn't know what I got a cut skin for. You understand? So that parents, that's the responsibility of parents. And you're not supposed to allow your children to go and learn those things in the classroom or by the neighbor or on the block or somewhere else. As parents, it's your responsibility to train and discipline and bring up your children in the fear of the Lord.
Thank you, Pastor Henry. I'm going to open up for audience members who have questions. I have not seen anything in the chat, but I'm hoping that some of you would raise your hand to be invited to ask your question. So anybody in the audience who has a question that would like to, Pastor Samuel, I know you always have a question. Actually, you're probably waiting to answer a question for us. Welcome, welcome. Yes, anyone in the audience who would like to, who has a burning question they would like to ask? All right, I'm going to keep it moving. This next segment is on parental skill of recognizing the individual needs of each child. When Maria gave her introduction, she said that she's raised 3 beautifully different children, something like that. You know, she has 3 children, they're all beautiful and wonderful, but they are unique in their own ways. So the question for you is, how do parents discipline their children differently without displaying impartiality? And how do they reward similar success without discouraging effort in another child? Let's start with you, Maria, and then we'll go to Brother Kerry.
Well, in my introduction, I said I had 3 wonderfully different children.
Wonderfully different, right?
Yes, because the truth is they have their own individuality. They're individuals. And so I had to treat with them as such. You know, what would work for one would not work for the other. And so I couldn't just paint the 3 of them with one brush. I had to learn them in order to discipline them and to also reward them. For me, disciplining them meant, just recognizing what would have worked for that child at the time based on the, the stage they were at. I have young adults now, and I can't say I'm going to pull a belt for you, but, we could have conversations, we could have dialogue, and we could reason where I can now say, well, what do you think? What do you think you should have done in a situation like this? And so because of the phase they're at now, we're more in that interactive type of disciplining, and that is working for them right about now. But before, we went through from the spanking, because the scripture said, don't spare the rod. Then we went to the taking away treats, taking away, privileges. And yeah, so now we're having the talk. And seemingly that is working at this phase of their life. In terms of rewarding, I tend to think that, it should be a family effort. In my family, when let's say one of them have to do an exam, we would meet together on the phone, because two of them live abroad. And so we would call and have a family chat. Rennie or Chelsea or Zachary is having a exam on such and such date at such and such time. Let's meet for prayer. So we would talk about the exam and the expectations, and we would pray about it. And so when the results are out, if it's favorable, we celebrate as a family. So that way the entire family is engaged, and one doesn't when it's not favorable in terms of you didn't pass the exam, whatever it is, we all would contribute some form of encouraging word. And so again, so one wouldn't feel neglected or slighted. So it's important that we find what works for our family as parents, because it may work in my home and may not work for yours. But you got to learn your children. You have to understand their needs and work with what works for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Brother Kerry?
Yeah, similarly to Maria, yes, it's all about the children's personality. Well, I don't really offer it like my dad one time, straight licks, but you still get licks. Don't get me wrong, because that's part of the way you got trained, so you can hold some licks. But for the first one, no, he's getting older. The boy, he's 12. I don't really give him much lashes, no, because he's getting in that phase. No, he just turned 12, and we would talk. Well, the young lady that's 10 knows seems like she's a little woman, so I know she don't like licks at all. She can catch a seizure. So I just work with that, right? And well, the 4 or 5 year old, well, I still kind of she's sort of strong too, but she's one you can try to reason with sometimes. She at first as any belt come out, she like try to disappear, or she will help me find the belt. I guess that's a way to avoid getting her share, right? So that is how it operates here. But as it relates to the rewarding, I try to use a lesson. Children are very forgiving, first of all. So you give them lashes and so forth, they're back on you and they're loving you. Don't try that with adult, because enemy for life. But children are very forgiving. So they tend to, and I think that helps teach them proper boundaries, as we know, so they know how far they can go. And don't promise the child licks and still don't give them licks. Don't think you become a good parent doing that. If you see again licks, give the licks. You understand? Because but then again, I may not be talking to Caribbean families all around. But what I'm saying is that they expect that and they know it. And if you fall back on that, then they don't have that security to know the boundaries. Nonetheless, you can talk with them and reason with them too. But with the rewards, I like to make it a lesson, like you're being rewarded because you have been X, Y, and Z. You've been good. So when we go to the beach and so forth, and we are having fun, or we're out, I remind them, because you were thoughtful in this area, this is why we are doing such and so forth, you're being respectful to your mom, and this is why you get this and so forth, So I try to make a lesson out of everything, even the words. And how it's a favoritism. Don't show any favoritism, because you know how that works out in the Bible. And even everybody wants to be favorite. I heard they were sort of eulogizing a lady, and her secret children want to find out, how comes that all of them, never quarrel when it comes to favoritism, and they only found out now, I guess, around the time of the burial and so forth, that she used to whisper to every child, and she had about 5 of them that you're my favorite, but don't let anybody know. You understand? So, but yes, you shouldn't have any favorites, and they respect you for that, if they would know. So that is really it. Yeah, thanks.
What I would like to add in this segment, knowing your children, as Maria said, is very important, because different personalities respond different to different rewards and punishment. And like in punishment, obviously, your children are like your watchmen, oh, so I get lashes for doing this, but because she's 5 or because she's 4, you won't give her any lashes. So this is what is happening here. No, this is favoritism, and they give you all these lectures. So they're always watching to see, if one buddy does something and the other person does the same thing, if you respond the same way. Yes, you might respond the same way, but the punishment might be different. So, for example, if you have a child and your child does not do their homework, Keontae is 12 and he has a cell phone. His cell phone might get taken away, but Kiona doesn't have a cell phone. So you might stop her from watching one of her favorite shows or something like that. So like although you are punishing them for an action that is not is not what you would want them to be displaying, you're doing it in a different way depending on your child. Just like with the 5-year-old, you're not going to, tell her, I'm going to take away a cell phone from her because she doesn't have a cell phone. You're not going to necessarily take away her TV time or whatever the case is. It depends on, depends on the age of the child. Also, in terms of rewards, understanding what your child likes, because like activities that they like being involved in could become their reward. So if they like to skateboard, like our son, he likes to skateboard, then you do your homework early, then you get time to go and skateboard. Like our daughter, she likes gymnastics. So if you reward the children with the things that they like, okay? And as parents of young children, that is one of the things that we have to try to find things that our children like and try to reward them that way and encourage them to walk the right path by giving them the rewards that they will look forward to.
In the chat, there's a comment from Kizzy. My daughter always asks me, Mommy, who's your favorite? I wouldn't say nothing. I told her I don't have a favorite. I love them both. And she gets vexed because I guess she realizes that you really didn't give her an answer. You didn't answer the question. Who is your favorite? Any other comments or questions? I see Pastor Henry, I see your hand. Let me check and see this. Anybody else who has a raised hand? Okay, Pastor Henry, go ahead.
One of the things that I learned as a grandparent is, and I'm sorry that I didn't learn it when I was a parent, and I apologize to my children for that. Beside recognizing what their likes and dislikes, is to recognize their talents, their natural abilities from very early. And I didn't recognize it because I was not looking for it. I just thought I had 2 lovely children and I'm trying to bring them up the best I can without looking for those natural abilities.
Okay.
Looking back in hindsight, I see that my daughter probably would have made a tremendous chef if she was pushed in the direction that she wanted to from, from childhood. And so that is very important, even in helping to discipline your children, in helping to rear your children, because a child may be bent on doing certain things, and because it's inconvenient to you, it's always a bother. You always want to do this and what have you and so on. And let me apologize publicly. I think my daughter is out there listening. Let me apologize publicly. So she always loved, and to show my ignorance, I mean, I tell you, I was really ignorant. She loved the kitchen, and one day she asked her mother for permission to bake, and so she didn't want any help. She just did what she had to do, and so she baked. And then the mother called me and showed me the cake that she baked, and the thing was so hard. I took it out of the pan and was rolling it on the counter like a cartwheel, and she came out. She came out and saw me. But foolishness. I would never, I mean, had I the wisdom then, I would have never done something like that. So sometimes we do these things that actually discourage our children, and instead of impacting them to develop into the person that they wanted to be. On the other hand, with her son, when he was just about 2-3 years of age, and I may have told the story on the program already. One Sunday morning, he said, "Grandpa, pen." He's in the car with me. And so I give him my pen, and I'm warning the mother, make sure he doesn't write on my car seat. But he takes the pen and he is pounding out to the music, to the beat of the music in the car. So I went to the States and I bought him a little drum set to the annoyance of the mother and the father. But by 5 years, he was playing the drums. Okay, so we need to look for those things in our children and work with them to develop whatever it is, help our children to develop those things. My son never used to read anything, but he loved to read the Greek fables and what have you, the classics. So here it is. I mean, philosophy would have been his choice if I had pursued and helped him along that line. At one time, he loved to play the guitar, and it was when he became a man, he spoke about his love as a child for wanting to play the guitar. He never learned because I didn't understand and I didn't work to get him into that kind of an area. And so as parents, we could miss a lot with our children. We could have them going into directions that they're not comfortable with later on in life, simply because we did not recognize their gifts and abilities at a young age. Thank you.
If I could just add something here.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we as parents may recognize it, but we don't have the right words to talk to the children about it. Because I remember one time my daughter Chelsea, when she had first started high school, she was in her home ec class and she thought fashion design is the way she should go. But every exam time, she's failing the class miserably. But the classes she was excelling in were biology, chemistry, physics, top in the class. But yet she wanted to be a fashion designer. So one day her uncle, my brother Fenric, came by and he said, well, I said, look at Chelsea's report book and have a chat with her, because as parents, we think we have to do it all, but we could also have support from our families and friends who could impact in their lives as well. And that's being a wise parent.
Yeah.
And so I asked him to look at her report book and, talk to her. What do you think? So he said to her, Chelsea, the subject that you like, you're really not doing good at all, but the subjects that you are excelling in, I think you should try and gravitate more to that. And that's all she needed to hear. She said, okay, uncle. And from then on, chemistry, physics, biology, niche. And today she's a naval officer with a chemistry degree and major, and she's doing biochemistry in the Navy. So sometimes we as parents don't have all that the children will need, and it's important that we draw strength from our families and friends who could impact on them in a positive way. And I think that is what the role of the church as well, to reinforce what we would have already imparted in them, not to replace us, but to reinforce. That's where I think we miss the mark in the churches. We can't be their parents, but we just need to support the parents and bring out the best in our children. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. When Pastor Henry talked about that cake that was rolling was hard, I thought of my middle daughter when I bought her the Easy Bake Oven, and she made these cookies and she brought it for me to taste, to eat. And of course, mothers, we just, we roll with it. And when I bit into the cookie, all I could taste was eggshells. And I ate those eggshells and I told her how wonderful it was. To this day, they still talk about that and laugh. And she is so appreciative that I did not crush her little baking effort. She's not a baker, but to her, that was wonderful and I liked what she cooked. That was funny to me. All right, let's go to the next. Let's see how we did on time. Oh, we're great. I don't see anything else in the chat except that someone says great program. They are enjoying it. Pastor Griffith said true to something that was said. Again, if you have a question, raise your hand, put it in the chat. I would love to hear from you. All right, this section is on interacting with children of the community, neighborhood, and church. And the question is, where and when should a Christian parent step in when it appears that the parents of a child have abandoned their roles? That can be applicable to permissive parents or even, sorry about that, or parents who, for whatever reason, can no longer fulfill their roles. And I know we're having to deal with, to help families, children of families whose parents are incarcerated. But as a church, we are stepping in to help rear those children. So I'm going to start with Brother Lucas, and then Pastor Henry, you can jump in after that. Brother Kerry?
Yes, well, it's always a good time to step in when you were seeing that there's some sort of lack there, as it comes to proper parenting. That is what we are as Christians are called to do, and that's really the role of the church there. And in your neighborhood, when you see something like that happens, it's time to step forward, to man up or to lady up, if you want to say it. And I remember even back then with my father, as we say, he was a church man, but he also had a little small business, join the shop with woodwork, and the guys would pass through. Obviously, sometimes they had to work a lot in there, so, but anytime there was a guy that, or some young guy that wasn't really on the right path, my father would try to encourage him in the right way, and I tend to remember too, there was always the opportunity for some work for you to come and make a little honest day's pay also. And I think as adults there's always something that you can do, build a relationship with that child, getting them to come around and do some odd jobs and give them a little change, as you would say, show that you appreciate what they're doing. Encourage them when you see them do something good, maybe wash a car, rake some leaves, whatever it is, but you need to encourage them, because most of the time that's really, they're not getting that encouragement from at home, and they're starting to wander all over the place. So that, I think, is the way how you can be a parent and try to allow them to open up to you, where that you can, where they can express themselves and what may be going wrong, and allow your family to embrace them as well, right? And you will find that they will want to be in your company so much that they really wouldn't want to veer too far off. So they'll like going out with your family. They would like to be around your family, and that's the best place too for your children when they get their friends to come by your home, so you can see who they are dealing with. And if the young people in the area recognize that this is a safe place that I can enjoy and be myself and feel appreciated, then you'll see that it becomes a change in the neighborhood, and things will improve. Mm-hmm.
Also, what I would add as well is that, some of these children who are abandoned to some extent, as we're referring to, that, you as the individual are the only Jesus that these individuals might see. So we cannot, remember I said at the beginning about being a practical Christian and allowing them to see the love of Jesus by dealing with and interacting with these children, taking them under your wing, loving them as if they're your own, to show them that, somebody cares about them, because we don't know the circumstance behind them being abandoned, right? And sometimes we might be a bit standoffish because we say we're not 100% sure. But even if it is just, a encouraging thought or a word, saying, I saw that you help the old lady across the street. Oh, that's a really good thing to do, and try to find something positive to speak into their lives so that, that would foster the relationship and allow them to develop a relationship with you. Because sometimes it's hard to penetrate young people by just going up to them and just, speaking to them directly. Sometimes it might not be as, encouraging as, and it might not start off in the conversation the way we would like, but no one rejects positivity, so finding something positive. Oh, I saw you left early for school this morning. I'm really proud of you for getting up there and getting out early. I hope that you have a productive day at school. Always try to find something positive to say to encourage those individuals in the community. And always allow them to know, that you're an individual that they can come and talk to, as Kerry was saying, so that, they wouldn't feel as if they're alone, even though they're not under your roof, that they would always have someone to come to. And just to add quickly, I remember listening to Unshackled, I think it was, and this story was talking about this young lady who would come to the church and she would listen to the music because she was in an abusive home. And the pastor would observe that she would come with a sibling all the time, and they would be late in the night, and he would ask her, where are your parents? She said, oh, she's drunk, or my dad is drunk. And she would come every night, and they would start to make cakes, and they would give her cake and drink. And when it was a point where her mom wanted to leave the dad, the dad kind of locked them out of the house. And the little girls said to the mom, oh, we know there is a safe place that we can go. And they headed straight to the pastor's house, where they would normally listen to the singing, and they would normally get the cake. And he opened the door for them because they had that relationship with him through, him giving them, and the wife giving the little cake and the little drink. They knew that they were kind and loving people, and they would not have allowed them to stay out in the cold. So in our communities, we have to be like that for the young people, a safe place that they know for sure if they're not on our door and they're really, really in need, that we will open up to them and provide whatever they are needing.
Pastor Henry.
If I were to become young again, and if money was not a problem, any community that I go to start a church, I would make sure that I have sufficient lands to build not just a church, but a compound, a center, a place where I can have counselors with various rooms, to have people to just walk in off the street and talk to them, to have the homeless come and get a meal and find a place to sleep. But more so, for young people. A place where children can come and sit with teachers and get help with their home lesson. People who would help them to develop, to understand their careers in life. To give that young man who would follow the advice of someone else to pick up a gun and shoot somebody to get some money, to show him how productive others have become by trusting in the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what my church would be about. That's what my life would be about. It's a pity we didn't do it before. It's a pity that I didn't know it before. It's a pity that I didn't have that vision from the first day of ministry. But that's where I think church is supposed to be. Every church, caring for every person in the community. Not only those who come to our church, but to every person from every religion, from every walk of life, to provide the service that Jesus Christ himself would have done. That's, to me, where we ought to be heading when we think of church and we think of our children, of our next generation. I think we can, those of the young people who are listening, if you run with my vision, we can make the next generation better. We have lost this one because people like myself and pastors of this generation, we were told and we were taught that the only thing that you need to be concerned about is to get people into the kingdom. And so once they confessed and they were baptized, that's what that was the main thing. And don't get me wrong, it is the most important thing. But until you get to heaven, you have to live on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as church, we should make earth a little heaven for those who are here with us. Thank you.
You never know, maybe the person to help realize that vision is hearing this program tonight, and at an age at which they are able to make this a reality, make this come to fruition. Maybe your job is to get the vision and share it, make it plain. So that some young man out there or some young woman out there could then be the implementer of that vision. So we'll see. Seed has been planted. Let's just water it and see, and let God bring the increase. All right. I'm looking at the chat. I just see some comments about Pastor Griffith said perhaps that is what Christianity is all about. Sherry said great vision. I want to hop off of the panel and let me look here real quick and see. Yes. Pastor Roger Samuel, I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on this, not just the vision that Pastor Henry shared, but also this discussion on the role that the church plays in the life of parents who are rearing children.
Thank you. I'm so inspired and encouraged by what I'm hearing. I'm sure any person who's listening and who need guidance as to how to rear their children will be very encouraged, because so many things will share, tools and information that will empower them to do much better. I like the perspective that Pastor Henry shared. We talked about not just us dedicating babies, but parents dedicating themselves to the task, because oftentimes we believe it's all done when the minister declared the blessings over the child, but the child of itself has no power to rear his or herself, say required. So the parents need to keep the doors of their lives open so the child can begin to absorb from their own, relationship with God. So I like that. And I like the fact, back and forth with the reward, the correction, the perspective, that was shared I really pray that those of us who didn't do as well as we should have would take the advice shared here tonight and really improve, because I think we have a lot of information, and that's why programs like these are so necessary. Oftentimes we think nothing is working. We have a lot of problems to talk about, but coming onto this program, you realize we're not just talking about problems, but we are providing godly solutions that you can have a shatterproof family. So I'm just so encouraged that finally we have a space in which we could encourage people and guide people to the way in which they achieve um, the things that is necessary for their growth. So listening on, I'm just saying in my mind, well done, well done, well done. And Pastor Henry, I too will be. I think you have already inspired in. I mean, when I looked at some of the people whose lives were changed by your effort and by your investment, it may not have been done the way you would have liked it to do it throughout the years. But I have seen so many different persons whose lives were changed and were given a sense of. So I think in some way you have accomplished some of that in more ways than one. And you have also inspired us to do likewise. So in some way we are doing it, it is being done through us. It is still being done, still connected to you. I just came back from Sierra Leone and spending time with some children in a Muslim community and helping them with a secondary school, a Christian school, providing education and assistance for those young people in that particular community. So you have inspired me, and I went there to do some of what you just described. So your work is being done, Pastor Henry. It is happening in more ways than one. And I mean, there's so much more to talk about, but I'm just letting you know to encourage you. What you describe is actually happening, and it's connected to your prayer, to your effort, and to your investment. So you are actually doing it through many of us who you have inspired and have encouraged and helped nurture. So I think you should really, and that's why we celebrate the God in you and the kind of father, the kind of input you have given. And I've seen the impact on your own children and Maria's children and many parents. I mean, and sometimes we don't always give people the credit for the good work they're doing because we have so many negative stories, but I can really see the kind of Christian investment. And you look at the quality lives of the children and the grandchildren, and the legacy continues. And so we see it work. As long as we follow God's pattern, the pattern in scripture, it works from generation to generation. And we're seeing the impact of your work, Maria's work, and all the parents who are here. I can't call all the names. And for those who I know, I mean,
He's frozen on my end. I'm not sure if he's frozen on your end. But thank you, thank you so much, Pastor Simon. Pastor Griffith, I want to hear a comment from you as well. Would you kindly pop in and share some words?
Yeah, I have 3 words I use. I talk about reverently, relevantly, and Katrina word practically. And I think like what we did tonight, we shared about our personal experience. We realized that we invariably impact on our children and have been impacted by our parents, both good and bad. But we also recognize that all of us as a people, as a community, as a country, need the collective support to invariably help shape. I appreciate Maria's guiding in regards to the child's trending where the child was actually going. I remember when my oldest son finished or was coming to finish school in the upper years, that is at secondary, I would have looked through his report and I said, I think from what I see in there, you seem to be got the greatest strength here. And you have to choose between these two areas, which one you want. But invariably, the church has a role. And I commended Pastor Henry, and I said, perhaps that is what Christianity is all about. We need to be practical. And our bishop would have once used to say that we are so heavily minded that we are something no use for down here.
No,
Right?
really good.
So I think the session has been good, especially since that what we did a lot was to identify with our own experience. And I'm quite certain that there are many who would have benefited from it. I pause.
Thank you. So we're getting to that point of closing. I'd like to really stick with our time frame. So I'm going to ask my panelists to get their closing remarks together. Each of you has about, let's see, about 6 seconds each to give your closing remarks. Let's start with Maria.
I am truly thankful to be part of this program tonight. I just want to encourage parents that they need not feel that they have to do it alone. They can draw strength from other parents that they see have been working with their children. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's what we're here to do, to support each other. And for our lovely children, keep God in everything that you do, and He will direct your path. Good night, parents.
Thank you. Mr. Katrina?
And good night again. It was a pleasure being here. My takeaway for parents and persons who are watching the program would be to know that your children are individuals and treat them accordingly. Love them the way they want to be loved and discipline them differently, and understand that, you don't have to have favorites. You just love your children for different reasons. You love different things in them, I should say. You love different things in your children. Not that you have favorites, but you have different things in them that you like, or you see in yourself as well. So just understand that your children are individuals and love them accordingly.
Thank you.
6 seconds
Kerry?
prophetically. Whoa. Well, Jesus is the greatest example, and Jesus made people feel comfortable. He made people feel secure. And also he rebuked them when it was time to get rebuked. He told them, "Hey, look, David." When they wanted to challenge his disciples, he would remind them, "Hey, David ate out of the temple when he was hungry." Who are you to speak? You have to defend your family, you defend your folk. Make them feel comfortable in your environs. And at the same time, also remember that even in the story of the prodigal, I always like to say that the prodigal's stories, he was in heaven is a parable that depicts heaven, and even the father who was depicted with God. So one would argue he didn't even get it totally right because one of his sons thinks, so look, I'm not too hard on yourself, as a parent, you're still learning, but if you instill certain things, they feel comfortable to come back. He said, let me return to my father, boy, and just become, even if it's just a servant, at least I know I'll be there. So once you have build that relationship, just as how Jesus built relationship with people, that is what really matters. And your role within the church, as simple as it is as a parent, you're there to bring them and you leave them in the Sunday school. Everyone plays their part in grooming this child. Back down to the little old man. I remember when it was a little boy, a little old man used to give me a sweetie, a little candy at the end of service. And I used to look forward to going to church too, even for that little candy. He said, you behave good, you didn't walk wrong too much, you didn't talk. Here's that little candy. So even if you get old, when I look forward to getting old as a man in your work in the house of the Lord and have a little bag of little sweeties to give out to children. So it's always a job for all of us to do, and I pray that God will bless us all as we do his word. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Henry?
Let me two or three things actually. Sister Maria Mccain is the head of our family life team at Faith Tabernacle. She didn't say that, so just plugging that there. For all the parents and the parents to be, those who are planning to be parents, purpose in your heart. I see Pastor Samuel raise his hands. All right. Purpose in your heart that you are not going to heaven without your children. Let me say that again. Purpose in your heart that you will not go to heaven without your children. That I am going to present them to the throne, just as Paul would say that he would want to present the Corinthians to the Father on that day, so that you would present your children. They would become your first source of evangelism, your first interest in evangelism, and you take them to the kingdom of God with you. And finally, for those who are planning to get married, if you are not as yet, within the next couple of months or so, you should be able to pick up on Amazon the title, Ready for Love, How About Marriage? And it should be out in a couple of months. Lord bless you, and thank you very much, Dr. Neff, and all of the panelists. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Pastor Henry, could you give us the author of that that book, please?
That is a secret.
Thank you, panelists, for being here tonight. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable information with our families. You have contributed to us building shatterproof families one brick at a time. Just want to remind you that Psalms 127:3 says that children are indeed a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. Yes. He has given us these children so that we could be good stewards to them. That's part of our stewardship, to take care, to rear those children so that they could be his reward. And I want to encourage you in your endeavor as you continue to raise those children, that you not do it on your own strength, to reach out to other parents, reach out to your church family for assistance. Reach out, because we are here and willing and ready and available to assist in whatever ways we can, because we want you to also raise children to be the ages of Maria's children and Pastor Henry's children and my children. And I know Carrie and Katrina are well on their way with their 3. And we have so many other examples within our audience. I was kind of looking through. We have so many other examples of parents in the audience who have done a tremendous job raising their children and are also helping others to raise theirs and contribute to them and being advocates for them so that they can be effective in their charge to raise these children. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next segment 2 weeks from today. Back to you, Pastor Henry.
Yes, and it will be on this, we continue the subject on parenting.
Yes.
And so we look forward to seeing everyone with us. And those who are thinking about having children, don't wait until it's too late, for you're only blessed with children if you have them in your youth. Psalm 127. It's right there in this text. Pastor Samuel, good night.
Pastor Henry, could you repeat the title of that book again, please?
Good night, Pastor.
Ready for love.
Pastor Samuel's benefit.
Ready for love, how about marriage?
How about marriage?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sweating already. I'm sweating already.
Oh, good night, everybody.
Good night. Wow.
Good night. And thank you for those who are viewing on YouTube.
Yes.
We appreciate you.
Yes.
Yes,
I
I really look forward
share this
to
time
hearing
with
too.
us.
Yes, I really look forward to hearing some of the confessions of the audience. I know this evening was us, but I want to hear some of the audience. So next time we want to hear them. confess, have they been a good parent, how they think they have been, just listen up, because I'm sure I'm willing to learn something, like to hear some stories. So, I'm looking forward to that one. So I can hear from you, the audience, as well, too. But thank you again, Pastor Henry and Dr. Patricia, great seeing you, Maria, again, and interacting, and may God continue to bless us all as we try to prepare the little ones for the kingdom. It's going to be a great party and a great celebration.
Amen. Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night, everyone.
I am the other half of that duo.
You always like to talk about your luck.
I said you have to write another book.
What
is that?
What to call it?
What's the name of that one?
The other half.
The other half.
Call it Season Love,
The better half of
Pastor
love.
Henry.
The
Season
better half of
Love.
love.
Good night, Mom. I heard your voice coming through, Mom.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Are you able to show your face? Mom raised 10 children, by the way. Mom,
Camera.
can you show your face? No?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Probably didn't put on the lipstick this evening.
Pastor Henry,